Interesting timing. I've been thinking the same about you. Let's begin. That was the last sentence I typed before clicking send and returning my attention to the project timeline glowing on the wall-mounted screen in front of me. My name is Aaron. I'm 38 years old. I live in Columbus, Ohio, and I've spent the last 11 years juggling civil engineering deadlines, shrinking budgets, and increasingly hollow conversations with my wife. I had been in the middle of a high-stakes design review meeting when the email pinged through. Subject line, 9 days to decide. I thought it was a joke at first, something from my team. But no, it was from Grace. The email was broken into bulleted lists, like a quarterly report. There were no greetings, no emotion, just clean, deliberate categories. Emotional neglect, stale communication, a complete lack of spontaneity. She even rated our intimacy on a scale of 10. 6.2. She wrote out the number, as if it made it sound more scientific. Then came the closer. You have 9 days to decide if this marriage means anything to you. I'll be doing my own evaluation. I didn't feel panic. I felt curious, detached, like I was reading a poorly written HR memo that somehow forgot to include context. It wasn't the content that got to me, it was the tone, as if she were offering me a severance package, as if 11 years of shared life could be summarized like a failed quarterly performance. No conversation, just audit and verdict. I could have stepped out, called her, rushed home. That's what she probably expected. Instead, I stared at the screen for another full minute. Then, calmly, I clicked reply. Subject, 9 days to decide. Interesting timing. I've been thinking the same about you. Let's begin. Then I hit send. Back in the meeting, my team was knee-deep in a debate about foundational support spacing. I should have been flustered. I wasn't. In fact, I felt more alert than I had in months. Shift Pier C 5 meters west and reduce the load rating by 10%, I said, pointing at the screen. The redundancy's already in the substructure. Everyone looked at me, not confused, impressed. It wasn't bravado, it was clarity. Pure, unexpected clarity. For too long, I'd been afraid to admit how off-course things had become between Grace and me. I wasn't the only one pulling away. I had just been too busy, and maybe too guilty, to call it what it was. Now, she wanted a structured evaluation? Perfect. I could do spreadsheets too. And unlike her, I wasn't afraid to be honest. The countdown had started, but not the way she thought. Grace was already sitting on the edge of the couch when I walked in, arms folded, legs crossed at the ankle, her let's talk posture. There was takeout on the counter behind her. Thai. She always ordered Thai when she wanted to have a difficult conversation. I didn't say anything at first, just set my keys on the hook, slipped off my shoes, and took my time washing my hands at the kitchen sink. You read the email, she said finally, trying to keep her voice even. I dried my hands slowly. I did. She uncrossed her legs and leaned forward a little, clearly expecting. What? An apology? A desperate plea? I turned around and met her eyes. Interesting format. Very performance review. Did you build that from a template or freeform it? Her lips parted slightly, like I'd just spoken in a language she didn't recognize. I'm just saying. I continued, walking past her to pour a glass of water. You gave me KPIs for marriage. That's commitment, in its own way. Grace straightened up. Aaron, I wasn't trying to hurt you. No, I get it. I sat across from her. You wanted clarity. You wanted to be heard. I respect that. So I'm taking this seriously. She looked unsure for a moment. You mean? I've started my own evaluation, I said. Day 1 went well. That stopped her cold. You're evaluating me? She asked, like I'd just admitted to bugging her car. Of course. If we're auditing a relationship, it should go both ways. That's only fair, right? She blinked. That wasn't the point. I meant it as. I needed to lay out where things stand. Right? You laid it out. Very clearly. I took a sip of water. No conversation. No heads up. Just bullet points. Like a manager who's already made a decision but wants to seem open to feedback. Grace's jaw tightened. So you're mocking me now? Not mocking, I said. Just observing. Day 1 is about observation. She stood up, arms still folded, but now pacing. You're twisting this. Am I? I asked, nodding toward the counter. You ordered takeout. First night of the 9-day connection restoration challenge, and you outsourced dinner. I was going to cook, but didn't. I tilted my head. It's just interesting. You say I'm not present, not contributing, not putting effort in. But I come home to pad thai and spring rolls in plastic containers. She turned sharply. You don't get to criticize me. You've checked out of this marriage for years. Then why stay? I asked calmly. Why not bring it up months ago? Why wait until it boiled over into a checklist? Silence. Then, because every time I tried, you were too busy. I leaned back in my chair. And you? You've been emotionally available? Present? I take care of the yard, fix the leaks, pay the bills. You outsource the housekeeper, the groceries, even the dog groomer. But I'm the one not showing up? Grace's face flushed, but she didn't answer. I stood up, collected my glass, and turned toward the hallway. Day 1 complete. I'm logging the takeout as symbolic. External effort with no real investment. I left her standing there, mouth half open, still processing. She had walked into the night expecting power. Authority. Tears, maybe. A negotiation. Instead, she got metrics. And I could tell it rattled her. Good. The alarm went off at 5:15 a.m. and for once, I didn't hit snooze. It had been years since I'd set foot in the gym before sunrise. The early morning weight racks used to be my ritual. Headphones in, world out, sweat, silence, clarity. Somewhere along the way, that part of me had been shelved. Family obligations, deadlines, together time. I'd stopped choosing myself in quiet, invisible ways. But not today. By 6:10, I was drenched, legs sore, and more awake than I'd felt in months. On the drive home, I rolled the windows down despite the chill. It felt good, stupidly good, like I'd stolen something back that was mine to begin with. When I walked through the front door, Grace was in her robe at the kitchen table, scrolling her phone. She looked up, caught off guard. You're up early, she said. I grabbed a water from the fridge. Yeah, thought I'd start reclaiming a few things. She blinked. Like what? I didn't answer right away. Just down half the bottle, then tossed it in the bin. Time. Energy. Things that weren't really mine the last few years. Her brows pinched together slightly. Okay. I didn't stay in the kitchen. I showered, changed, and pulled my old phone contacts off cloud storage. Friends I hadn't talked to in ages. Guys from college. One buddy from my first job who I used to grab beers with once a month before everything turned into couple dinners and curated social calendars. I sent 2 texts. Both answered within the hour. By the time Grace came downstairs again, hair curled, makeup halfway done, I was in the kitchen chopping garlic and whisking sauce. She paused in the doorway, surprised. You're cooking? Yep. For dinner? No. I said, dicing onions. Lunch prep. I'm tired of eating cafeteria pizza. She leaned against the frame. You've never meal prepped in your life. I glanced over, kept my tone light. And you've never written a relationship ultimatum like a corporate layoff notice. But here we are. She didn't respond to that. Dinner's on me tonight, too, I added. I'm making that carbonara I like. Her smile faltered. You mean, the one with the thick pancetta? That's not really my. Exactly, I said. It's not really your favorite, but it's mine. She walked over and leaned on the counter. You're acting different. I wiped my hands. I'm acting like someone who realized he was waiting around for approval that was never coming. Grace gave a dry laugh. You're saying I didn't support you? I'm saying your version of support has always depended on whether it aligned with your needs. I met her eyes. And if it didn't, you withheld warmth, or made it uncomfortable to choose anything that wasn't US. That's not fair. No, I said. It's accurate. She went quiet for a beat. So what? Now you're just ignoring me? I stirred the sauce, then turned to face her. I'm not ignoring you. I'm just not prioritizing your disapproval anymore. Her jaw tightened slightly, but she didn't respond. She didn't know what to do with this version of me. Calm, assertive, unmoved by her discomfort. We ate in silence that night. She picked at the pasta, barely touched the bread. I devoured mine, poured a second glass of wine, and caught up on an old podcast I used to love. Grace kept glancing at me across the table like she was trying to locate something she recognized. But that version of me, the apologizer, the quiet fixer, the grateful recipient of her validation, he wasn't home anymore. I smelled it before I saw it, scrambled eggs, toast, maybe some kind of frittata attempt, and instantly knew something was off. Grace didn't cook. She ordered. She assembled a charcuterie board once every 3 months and called it dinner. But day 3 of the relationship review apparently came with breakfast. She was standing by the stove when I walked into the kitchen, spatula in hand. wearing that pastel apron her sister gave her 2 Christmases ago, the one that still had the tag attached until this morning. "I made you something," she said, with a quick, too hopeful smile. "Wow," I said, glancing at the table. 2 plates, cloth napkins, even orange juice in glasses we hadn't used since our last anniversary dinner. "Big swing for 7 a.m. She laughed lightly. "Well, you've been getting up early. I figured we could sit down together." I didn't touch the plate yet. "Why today?" She hesitated. "Because we've been off. And I'm trying." "Okay," I said, pulling out a chair. "Let's talk about that." She sat across from me, eyebrows rising slightly. "You want to cook now?" I asked. "Why is that? Is it a peace offering, or is it to reset the scoreboard?" She looked annoyed. "Does it matter?" I made an effort. "It matters," I said, cutting into the eggs. "Because if this is just a new tactic, it's still control. Wrapped in cinnamon toast." Her eyes narrowed. "You think everything I do is manipulation?" "I think everything you do is strategic," I said. "And this breakfast isn't about us. It's about you getting credit." She exhaled sharply. "You're unbelievable." "No," I said calmly. "I'm consistent. For years, I kept showing up. Quietly. And now that I've started asking you to meet me halfway, suddenly I'm cold." "You are cold," she snapped. "I'm here trying to fix things, and you're treating me like some hostile witness." I set down my fork. "I'm not withholding affection. I'm withholding codependency. You said you wanted truth. Here it is. What you call love has always required me to shrink." She blinked. "I couldn't go to the gym because it made you feel ignored. I couldn't travel with friends because you'd sulk for days. I couldn't even say I was tired without you accusing me of being emotionally unavailable." "That's not fair," she said, her voice lower now. "You never told me." "I did. You just labeled it neglect when it didn't revolve around you." We sat in silence for a beat. Her jaw clenched, but she didn't speak. I stood up, grabbed my coffee, and slung my work bag over my shoulder. "I'll be home late," I said. "I've got a design review that might run long. There's leftover carbonara if you get hungry." She stayed seated. Still, normally, I'd kiss her goodbye. Normally, I'd soften the edge. But this wasn't a normal week. This was a reset. As I walked out the door, I felt lighter than I had in years. And at work, I was sharper, clearer, energized. I caught mistakes in the schematics no one else saw. I wrapped my reports early, even laughed during lunch. Turns out, when you stop bleeding emotionally at home, you start performing like someone who actually belongs in their own life. I hadn't seen Kyle in over a year, but we picked up like we always did. No pretense, no filters. Just 2 guys in a downtown cafe, nursing overbrewed coffee and laughing about how we used to think 38 was old. "So, how's Grace?" he asked mid-sip, eyes scanning my face like he already knew the answer. I paused. "Depends on what day you ask." Kyle leaned back in his chair. "Let me guess. She's doing her annual existential audit?" I raised an eyebrow. "She pulled that on you last summer, right? The whole, 'are you even emotionally present' thing? Or was that the year before?" I let out a breath, surprised. "You remember that?" "Man, everyone remembers that dinner party at her friend Haley's house," he said, shaking his head. "Grace basically called you a shell of a man. Right in front of the appetizers." I blinked. "Wait, what? You seriously didn't realize?" "She made some joke about how the only thing you ever penetrate lately is a spreadsheet." I stared at him, stunned. "Jesus, man," Kyle said. We all felt awkward. Haley's husband tried to change the subject, but she doubled down. Said you'd become boring. Like, those exact words. I tried to swallow the lump forming in my throat, but it stuck. He kept going. "Look, I always assumed it was some twisted dynamic you two had. Grace complains, you take it. Public performance art, you know? I didn't think people noticed." "Oh, people noticed," Kyle said. "Like when she bailed on my birthday dinner last year. Told everyone you two had to stay home because you were too anxious around new people." Which made no sense, because it was 10 of us, and you knew all of them. "That's not what happened." He nodded. "Yeah, I figured. But that's what she told the room." The knot in my stomach tightened. "What else?" He hesitated for a second, then said, "Remember that couple's spa day Emily put together? Grace said you opted out because you're not comfortable with your body." Then laughed like it was this cute thing. I felt my pulse in my ears now. I remembered that day. I had declined because I had a migraine after a project deadline. She'd barely spoken to me for 2 days after. Kyle softened. I'm not trying to throw gas on the fire, man. Just, you always seemed like a ghost around her. Like you were there, but waiting for someone to give you permission to exist. I sat back, trying to process it all. The public jabs. The fake stories. The fact that people saw it. Everyone but me. Thanks, I said finally. Seriously. He shrugged. You deserve someone who sees you. Not someone who edits you for her narrative. That night, when I walked through the front door, Grace was humming softly in the kitchen, pulling takeout containers from the bag. Tie again. Hey, she said cheerfully, like nothing was off. I got your favorite. I watched her, silently. She smiled over her shoulder. Rough day. I leaned against the wall. You ever wonder what people think of us? She glanced back, confused. What do you mean? Our friends. The ones we go to dinner with. Hang out with. You ever wonder how they see us? She set down the bag, cautious now. Why are you asking? Because I found out today, I said, voice even. And I don't think you'd like the answer. Her face tensed. I always thought the way you talked to me was private, I continued. Turns out, it was more of a public broadcast. And I was the punchline. She didn't say anything, just stared. I walked to the fridge, grabbed a water, and turned back to her. We're going to talk tonight. About what you've said, what you've shown people, and what that says about the version of me you prefer to present. Grace didn't smile, didn't speak. The mask didn't crack, it shattered. I waited until the plates were in the dishwasher and the TV was off. No distractions, no escape routes. Grace was sitting on the couch with her legs tucked under her, flipping through a home decor magazine like it wasn't just a prop. She looked up when I walked in. We need to talk, I said. She froze, eyes narrowing slightly. About you, I said. Me. The running commentary you've been giving to the rest of the world. Her brows knit together. What are you talking about? Let's start with Haley's dinner party, I said, sitting in the armchair across from her. You told a group of people I was basically a corpse in our marriage bed. Called me a spreadsheet. A data guy who forgot how to feel. Ringing any bells? Her mouth opened, then shut. And Kyle's birthday? I continued. You told everyone I stayed home because I was too anxious to be social. Said it like I was some fragile man-child instead of the guy who rearranged his schedule to take care of the AC repair guy that day because you forgot the appointment. I was joking, she said quickly. It wasn't meant to be serious. But it was serious enough to shape how people see me, I shot back. It was enough to make me the butt of a punchline I didn't know was being told. Over and over. She sat up straighter, defensive now. It's not like I said you were a bad husband. No, I said coldly. Just an emotionally broken one. A boring one. A sexless one. Depending on the night. She stood up and started pacing. Okay, you're blowing this way out of proportion. No, I said. I'm finally seeing the proportion for what it is. You've been dishing out subtle slander for years, wrapped in sarcasm and cocktail party charm. She crossed her arms. People vent. It's normal. Not like this, I said. Not consistently. Not while smiling at me in public and making sure everyone around us knows a version of me you crafted for your convenience. She looked away. And for what? I asked. To feel superior? To stay in control? Because God forbid anyone see the cracks in your perfect marriage brand? Grace's voice dropped. You don't understand how hard it's been, trying to hold everything together. I stared at her. No, Grace. You held nothing together. You curated. You staged. And when things didn't match the image, you threw them under the bus. Including me. Silence stretched between us like a frayed rope. I didn't mean for it to get like this, she said finally, voice barely above a whisper. I was angry. Lonely. I needed someone to talk to. You needed someone to blame, I replied. And I was easy. Safe. Because you knew I wouldn't push back. I'm sorry. The words hung there, and for a second, I almost believed them. But they were too neat. Too convenient. Her apology came only after exposure. After she realized I knew. I nodded slowly. I hear you. But understand this. You weaponized vulnerability. And now, you're facing its return fire. She didn't cry. She didn't argue. For the first time in years, Grace didn't have a script. And that silence said more than any apology ever could. Day 5 started with a handwritten note on the kitchen counter. Not a text. Not an email. An actual folded sheet of stationery, tucked beside the coffee machine like it belonged there. I'm sorry. I didn't realize how much I hurt you. I want to try again, with honesty this time. Let's talk tonight. Just us. No walls. Love, Grace. I read it twice before setting it down. The penmanship was careful. Rounded loops. Soft cursive. It looked sincere. But by now I knew better. I came home that night to candles lit, a new dress on her, and dinner that smelled suspiciously like it came from that Italian place she never liked. My favorite. You cooked? I asked, knowing the answer. She smiled like it was a secret. Does it matter? We ate mostly in silence. She filled the air with light conversation, how her client meeting went, how she was thinking about trying yoga again. I didn't bite. Halfway through dessert, she cleared her throat. I've been thinking, maybe we should go to counseling. I set my fork down. Now. Her tone softened. It could help. I know I've made mistakes, but maybe with someone guiding us. Would this be before or after you issue another character assassination in a wine bar? I said. Her jaw tightened. That's not fair. No, I said calmly. What's not fair is you acting like a solution is as simple as scheduling an appointment and lighting some candles. You think you can repackage control as repentance and I won't notice? She blinked, stunned. You didn't come clean because you felt remorse, I added. You came clean because I finally made it inconvenient for you not to. That's not true, isn't it? I leaned forward. The note, the dinner, the therapy pitch, all in one day. That's not emotional growth. That's damage control. Her voice sharpened. So what do you want from me, Aaron? Blood? You want me to just stand here and get dragged? No, I said. I want you to take actual accountability. Not just with me. With the people you performed for. She stared at me, confused. You want to fix this? I continued. Start by telling Haley you lied. Tell Kyle you exaggerated. Admit to Emily you turned me into a joke so you could feel superior. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. That's what real repair looks like, I said. Tearing down the version of me you created in public. Not for my ego, but for the truth. She stood there, frozen, eyes darting. Then she stepped back, defensive rising like a wave. That's unreasonable, she said, voice shaking. You're asking me to humiliate myself. No, I said. I'm asking you to tell the truth. You say you're sorry, but what you're really sorry for is that I stopped playing along. We stood in silence. Then she muttered, You're different. Yeah, I said. Because I'm finally seeing the game. I picked up my plate and walked it to the sink. Grace stayed there, staring at the table, her illusion of control cracking, one silent second at a time. She hadn't apologized because she felt it in her bones. She did it because panic dressed itself up as love. And I wasn't buying it. Not anymore. Day 9. It started like any other workday. Smooth coffee, inbox triage, first draft of a bridge retrofit proposal. But around 10:17 a.m., my phone buzzed. One message. Grace, today's the day. Are you fighting for us? I stared at it for a second. Then I locked the screen and slid the phone back into my pocket. The answer was already decided. I finished my meetings. Ate my lunch alone on the steps outside the office, sun warm on my face. Drove home later than usual, stopping for gas even though the tank was half full. Not to delay, just to breathe. When I walked through the door, I knew right away she'd been crying. Grace sat at the dining room table, hands wrapped around a mug she wasn't drinking. The candles were unlit this time. The kitchen was quiet. And on the table beside her was a sheet of paper, lined with bullet points in that same careful handwriting she used on day 5. Here, she said, sliding it toward me. Everything I'm ready to change. I didn't pick it up right away. I scanned it from where I stood. Publicly clarify past statements with our friends. No more jokes at your expense, ever. Apologize, sincerely, without defensiveness. Rebuild trust through transparency. Therapy. Individual and couples. Listen to understand, not control. There were more. She looked up at me, eyes raw. I know it's a lot. I know it's late. But I've been doing the work. I've been thinking every day about what I did, how I made you feel, the way I treated us like something I could manage instead of something I should nurture. She reached out, fingertips barely brushing the edge of the page. I meant it when I said I'm sorry. And I mean it now when I say I want us back. I sat down slowly, let the silence linger. I believe you've been thinking, I said finally. I believe you've written this list from a place of panic and pain. But Grace, this isn't about whether you're sorry. She swallowed hard. Then what is it about? It's about timing, I said. It's about what it means that you needed to lose control before you found reflection. She stared at me like she didn't understand. I wasn't perfect, I continued. I shut down. I let myself get small. But I never ridiculed you to others. I never reduced you for sport. I never made you beg for basic dignity. And now, after all that, you want to know if I'm still willing to fight. Grace nodded, a tear slipping down her cheek. Yes. I met her gaze. But where was that question when you wrote the ultimatum? Where was it when you told strangers I was a burden? When you made me feel invisible in rooms where I should have been safe? She broke then, quietly, the kind of cry that folds inward. No theatrics, just sorrow. I didn't know, she whispered. I know, I said. And that's the problem. I stood up, took the list gently from the table, folded it once, slipped it into my jacket pocket, not as a keepsake, but as closure. She looked up at me, eyes pleading. Please don't go. We can fix it. I shook my head. We could have. But what we lost didn't start with an email. It started with erosion. Small, repeated cracks you refused to patch, until the foundation gave out. I walked to the door, not in anger, not in triumph, in peace. Because sometimes walking away isn't failure. It's freedom. It had been 3 months since I left. I'd moved into a modest apartment near the river. Quiet, clean, no memories baked into the walls. The mornings were my own again. Black coffee, no tension, silence without guilt. I went to the gym, cooked my food, read more, slept better. Most days, I didn't think about Grace at all. But then, on a Sunday afternoon run to the grocery store, there she was, by the produce section, holding a bag of lemons like she wasn't sure what to do with them. She looked smaller somehow. Or maybe it was just the absence of performance, the glossy smile, the curated posture. She wore flats, no makeup, hair pulled into a low ponytail. Her eyes flicked up and caught mine. We both froze. She stepped forward first. Hi, she said softly. Hey, I said neutral. For a second, we just stood there, between avocados and apples, like strangers who vaguely remembered something that used to matter. You look good, she said. Thanks. A beat passed. I didn't think I'd see you again, she added. I shrugged. Didn't plan on it. She nodded, lips pressed together. I've been going to therapy. Alone. For real this time. I didn't react. Just waited. Her voice dipped. You were right. About everything. I needed control. I needed to look good, even if it meant making you feel small. I gave a slight nod. Took me a while to see that. But once I did, I couldn't unsee it. She swallowed. If I had treated you differently, if I had actually listened, do you think we could have made it? I looked at her then. Really looked. If you had treated me better? I said slowly. Yeah, maybe. The man you used to have would have stayed. He was built to endure. Her eyes shimmered, but no tears fell. She understood. But that man, I added, he's gone, and I don't want him back. She nodded again, almost to herself, then gave a soft smile. Real, this time. Small. Tired. I get it, she said. I adjusted the basket in my hand. Take care of yourself, Grace. You too, she whispered. I walked away without turning back. Outside, the wind caught my jacket as I crossed the parking lot. I stopped at my car, leaned on the door, and took one long breath. I didn't feel victorious, or bitter, or broken. I felt clear. Grace had handed me an ultimatum thinking it would wake me up. And it had, just not the way she imagined. Because some lessons don't teach you how to fix something. Some teach you when to let go and walk toward the life waiting on the other side of freedom.